Hello, this is Gair and Karunatillake, Lesson 2, Video 4. We resume at Further Readings 2 on page 26. Tinimani bhikkhave nidanani kammanam samudayaya. Katamani tini. 3 are these, O monks, links to the arising of kammas, literally. The word for 3, the base is ti, but it varies. Sadly, we'll have to learn this as we go along. It varies for masculine, feminine, and neuter. And the neuter for 3, nominative and accusative neuter, is tini. And imani is also the neuter plural, these. So tini imani, by sandhi becoming tinimani, 3 these, meaning there are these 3. So tinimani bhikkhave, there are these 3, O monks, nidanani. Nidanam is the causal link. The word nidana is also used, for example, in Ayurvedic medicine for the etiology of a disease, the cause, that which has caused the illness to arise. And in the paticca samuppada, dependent co-arising, you have the 12 nidanani, the 12 causal links, one linking to the next. So that there are these 3 nidanani, these 3 links, or causes. Note the dative here, samudayaya, the causes to the arising. We'd say the causes for the arising. In Pali, you could use the genitive here, samudayassa, samudayaya. The dative is used here. Samudayaya kammanam, for the arising of karmas. Katamani tini. Katama is which one or what, as in what are they, of what kind are they? Identify them. Neuter plural, katamani. Katamani tini. Which 3? Lobho nidanam kammanam samudayaya. Doso nidanam kammanam samudayaya. Moho nidanam kammanam samudayaya. These actually are 3 separate short sentences. It's an equational, each is an equational sentence, that is, A is B, where you can leave out the verb to be. So lobho, wanting, greed, desiring. It's actually cognate with our English word love. From that same root, this has lobho, the idea of wanting to get it. Lobho, nidanam, lobho is a cause of, or a causal link. Lobho nidanam kammanam samudayaya. Lobho, desire, greed, is a nidanam, is a link. Kammanam samudayaya, to the arising of kammas. Kammanam, of course, that's the genitive plural. Note here again, we would say in English, we do say in English, the arising of causes. It's put the arising of kammas. It's put the other way around most frequently in Pali and Sanskrit. Of kammas, the arising. That's just the normal way of putting it. Doso nidanam kammanam samudayaya. Dosa, hatred or ill will. It's from the Sanskrit root dvish, and it's actually dvesha in Sanskrit. It becomes dosa, the ve becomes an o in Pali. So ill will, hostility, hatred. Nidan kamanam samudayaya is a nidana, is a link, a causal link for the arising of kammas. Moho nidanam kamanam samudayaya. Moha, delusion, that's lack of mental clarity. Moho is a nidana, is a causal link for the arising of kammas. In the next paragraph, we'll deal just with that first sentence first. There's quite a bit in it. Yam bhikkhave lobha pakatam kammam lobhajam lobhanidanam lobha samudayam tang kammam akusalam. Here we have a relative, or what's often called a correlative construction. It's dealt with in the grammar at page 24, section 6. The sentence structure generally differs from English, but once you get the hang of it, it's not too difficult. In English, you might say, do what I say. In Pali and in Sanskrit, you would say, what I say, that do. So you first of all identify the contents of the relative clause, what I am saying, whatever I am saying. Then you start a new sentence, that do that. So yam bhikkhave lobha pakatam kammam. Now go on to tam kammam akusalam. Let's now just break this down into simple gobbets to make it easier to understand. And once you've understood this, you will understand most, even complex, correlative clauses in Pali. So yam, so yam lobha pakatam kammam. So lobha lobha pakatam. Pakatam, Sanskrit prakritam, cognate with our prakrits that we were discussing. Here it just means done. So the act, the kammam, the act, pakatam kammam, a done deed, an act that is done. Compound lobha pakatam, agreed done act. In other words, an act that is done with greed, an act that is done out of self-wanting. So yam lobha pakatam kammam, which greed done act. Tam kammam akusalam. In English, we would say the act that is done with greed. Let's call it the greed done act. Let's get that form of compound into your heads. The greed done act, the act that is done. So the act, in English now we say the act that is done with greed is unwholesome, unskillful. The act that is done with greed is unwholesome. In Pali, which act is lobha pakatam? The act that is greed done. Which act is greed done? That act is unskillful. Remember, I was saying, do what I say, that do. What act is greed done, that act is unskillful. So you first of all identify the topic about which you're going to make a comment, the act that is done with greed. Then you make your comment about it. Well, it's called the topic comment construction. Identify the topic and then the comment that you're making about. Identification of topic, which act is greed done, in other which we would say the act that is greed done. That act is unwholesome, unskillful. I'll go back to the beginning of this paragraph again. Yam bhikkhave lobha pakatam kammam lobhajam lobha nidanam lobha samudayam tang kammam akusalam. Lobha pakatam, greed done. These now are a series of compound adjectives. Lobhajam. Most frequently, when you see a word which consists of a noun followed by a ja, the ja just means born, born of. Cognate with the genesis, generation. So a lobhajam kammam is a greed-generated act, an act born out of greed. Lobha nidanam, a greed-caused. Lobha nidanam. Lobha samudayam. Samudaya, the arising, as in the first sentence. The nidanani kammanam samudayaya, links for the arising of kammas. So lobha samudayam, greed originating. So greed origined. These compounds are of slightly different constructions. Look at lobhaja. Greed born, and lobha nidana. This is the verbal root, slightly irregularly because the root is jan. But when it occurs at the end of a compound, the n drops, just becomes lobhaja. It's a very common one. Make sure you learn this. Greed born. Lobha nidana. Nidana is a separate noun. Ja is not a separate noun. It's just the verbal root, adding that act to the noun. So lobha ja, greed born. Lobha nidana. Nidana caused. This is a different kind of compound. It means having greed as its cause. In English, when we say greed born, we know exactly what is meant. Born of greed, lobhaja. When we say greed cause or greed caused, we could interpret that mean caused by greed or having greed as its cause. In Pali and Sanskrit, this is the latter one. It's the possessive compound. So having greed as its cause. Same as the next one, lobha samudayam. Having greed as its origin, as its arising. Note that we have that the word samudaya as a noun, as an independent noun, samudaya, it's a masculine noun of the short a declension, and therefore the nominative singular is samudayo. It's a masculine noun. Look at this compound, the lobha samudayam. Where you have a noun of any gender, forming the last element of a compound, lobha samudaya. As I've left off the last letter so far. Lobha samudaya in the stem form. This now becomes the second element in a compound adjective. Lobha samudaya, greed caused. On its own, it's a masculine noun and declines like a masculine noun. When it's part of a compound, it loses its noun status. Sorry, when it's part of an adjectival compound like this, it becomes an adjective. And it declines like an adjective and will take the gender of whatever noun it's applying to. So, the noun that we're talking about is kammam. Which, of course, as we know, is in Sanskrit karma. The RM becomes a double M in Pali. That's a neuter noun. Therefore, although samudayo is a masculine noun when used as a noun, now that it's tacked onto the end of an adjectival compound, it declines like an adjective. So you get lobha samudayam kammam. A greed arising kamma, a greed arising act, an act that has its genesis, its origin in, an act that has its origin in greed. So yambikube lobha pakatam kammam lobhajam lobhanidanam lobha samudayam tang kammam akusalam. That act is unskillful. Tam kammam savajam. That act is blameworthy. Tam kammam dukkha vipakam. That act will end into have a bad outcome, a bad ripening, or a ripening in dukkha. I'll explain that in a moment. Tam kammam kamma samudayaya samvattati. That act, kamma samudayaya samvattati, leads to the arising of karma. Natang kammam kamma nirodhaya samvattati. Nirodha, the cessation. Not that act, samvattati, leads to kamma nirodhaya, to the kamma cessation, the cessation of karma. Tang kamman dukkha vipakam. Dukkha vipakam. Dukkha, we all know. We know too well. Dukkha, this is another possessive adjective. So it means dukkha vipakam, dukkha ripening, whose ripening consists of dukkha. Dukkha vipaka. Vipako, as an independent noun, means ripening. It has its origin, actually, in the same root as our English verb to bake. You ripen something, make it ready for eating, make grain ready for eating, bread ready for eating by baking. Vipako, baking out. It's in the natural world, and particularly with regard to fruit, vipako means the ripening. It's the ripening of fruit. And the kamma vipaka is the karma ripening. So you do an act, you don't necessarily get instant karma, but in due course the kamma will ripen. Vipachati. So the vipachati is the verb, and the verbal noun is vipako. So kamma ripening. As I mentioned before, with the what was it? Lobha samudayam kammam. Lobha samudaya having its origin in greed, where the masculine noun samudayo, when at the end of this compound, the entire compound is an adjective and so behaves like an adjective. Here it's the same. Tankamam dukkha vipakam. So vipako on its own, the ripening. So you could say kammassa vipako, the ripening of kamma. Now it's become part of an adjective, dukkha vipaka. Vipaka, so dukkha ripening, having its ripening in dukkha. It now becomes an adjective, declines like any other adjective. So dukkha vipakam kammam, a dukkha ripening act, or an act that will ripen into dukkha. Tankamam kamma samudayaya samvattati. That act, samvattati, leads or is conducive to kamma samudayaya, kamma arising, to the arising of kamma. Datankammam kamma nirodhaya samvattati. The tankammam, that act, na samvattati, does not lead. Now dative kamma nirodhaya, to karma cessation, the cessation of kamma. Normally, the particle na, meaning not, will occur immediately before the verb that it negates, but for emphasis it can be separated and put earlier in the sentence. So in normal speech, these last words would have written tang kammang kammanirudhaya na samvattati. Here, natang kammam kammanirudhaya samvattati. Not indeed, not does that act lead to the cessation of kamma. It doesn't alter the meaning. It's just a more eloquent, emphatic way of saying that it does not lead to the cessation of kamma. The next paragraph exactly repeats the previous one, but with the lobha changed for dosa, and likewise with the paragraph after that, it becomes moha, otherwise they're the same. So, imani ko bhikkhave tini nidarani kammanam samudayaya. So, O monks, bhikkhave, imani ko tini nidarani, so imani ko tini, these three, O monks, nidanani are the causes for kammanam samudayaya, the arising of kamma. You see here in the plural, kammas. Tinimani bhikkhave nidanani kammanam samudayaya is now beginning it looks as if he's saying exactly the same thing, but he's now going to the causes for the arising of a different form of kamma, good kamma. So, Tinimani bhikkhave nidanani kammanam samudayaya, these three links, O monks, are for the arising, are to the arising, or these three, O monks, are the links, the causes for the arising of kamma. Katamani tini, which three? These paragraphs now repeat practically word for word so I think I may have lost my place a bit there. I haven't learned how to edit yet. Please bear with me until I find out. Starting now at, restarting at alobho. Alobho nidanam kammanam samudayaya. Adoso nidanam kammanam samudayaya. Amoho nidanam kammanam samudayaya. So non-greed, non-desire is a nidanam, is a causal link for the arising of kammas, and similarly, adoso, non-hatred, amoho, non-delusion. The next sentence pretty much repeats the previous ones. The form and construction of it is the same. with the alobha pakatam kammam, the non-greed done act, alobhajam, born of non-greed, alobhanidanam, having its causal link in non-greed, alobha samudayam, having its samudaya, its origin in alobha, in non-greed. Similarly, for the remainder of this section at the top of page 27, the adosa pakatang kammam, the act done with non-hostility, non-hatred, amoha pakatam kammam, the act, the amoha pakatam, the non-delusion done act, the act that is done without delusion or without mental confusion. So now I will read through the entire section slowly and try to follow it. Tinimani vikkowe nidanani kammanam samudayaya. Katamani tini. Lubho nidanam kammanam samudayaya. Doso nidanam kammanam samudayaya. Moho nidanam kammanam samudayaya. Yam bhikkhave lobha pakatam kammam, lobhajam, lobhanidanam, lobha samudayam, tang kammam akusalam, tang kammam savajam, tang kammam dukkha vipakam, tang kammam kamma samudayaya samvattati, natang kammam kamma nirodhaya samvattati. Yam bhikkhave dosa pakatam kamman dosajan dosa nidanam dosa samudayan tang kammam akusalang tang kammam savajam tang kamman dukkha vipakam tang kammam kamma samudayaya samvattati natang kammam kamma nirodhaya samvattati. Yam bhikkhave moha pakatam kammam mohajam mohanidanam moha samudayam tang kammam akusalam tang kammam savajam tang kammam dukkha vipakam tang kammam kamma samudayaya samvattati natang kammam kamma nirodhaya samvattati. Imani ko bhikkhave tini nidanani kammanam samudayaya. Tini mani bhikkhave nidanani kammanam samudayaya. I've just spotted here there's an error in the text. Tini mani, it should be a long R. Tini mani is written as if it's money. It's written correctly up at the top with a long R. Tini imani. It should be tini mani here. Tini mani bhikkhave nidanani kammanam samudayaya. Katamani tini. Alubho nidanam kammanam samudayaya. Adoso nidanam kammanam samudayaya. Amoho nidanam kammanam samudayaya. Yam bhikkhave alobha pakatam kammam alobhajam alobha nidanam alobha samudayam tang kammam kusalam tam kammam anavajam tang kammam sukha vipakam tang kammam kamma nirodhaya samvattati natang kammam kamma samudayaya samvattati. Yam bhikkhave adosa pakatam kammam adosa jam adosa nidanam adosa samudayam tang kammam kusalam tang kammam anavajam tang kammam sukha vipakam tang kammam kamma nirodhaya samvattati natang kammam kamma samudayaya samvattati. Yam bhikkhave amoha pakatam kammam amohajam amohanidanam amoha samudayam tang kammam kusalam tang kammam anavajam tang kammam sukha vipakam Tam kammang kamma nirodhaya samvattati. Natam kammang kamma samudayaya samvattati. Imani ko bhikkhave tini nidanani kammanu samudayayati. And remember at the very end, samudayayati, that where you add a T to the end of a word that ends in a short vowel, it automatically lengthens that vowel. Okay. Samudaya, arising. Make that into a dative now. Samudayaya, the aya ending. Samudayaya. And T, a close quote, end of quote, T. If you add the T on, this final vowel automatically lengthens. It's purely a phonetic phenomenon. It's nothing to do with grammar. It's that same word, samudayaya, but just phonetically lengthened with the T ending. So, tini nidanani kamanam samudayayati. Right, that is the end of this video. We will resume at reading number 2 in the next clip, and that's on page 27.